the left. Once I rose above the noise and confusion, just to get a glimpse beyond the illusion. Men start right and you roll it one time round. Allen on the left and you weave the line. Carry on my wayward son, for there'll be peace when you are done.
All right, here we go. Another Square Dance Callers Talking. Tonight, I'm in Iowa. I'm going to have twin brothers. If you didn't know, I have Don and Doug Sprosty. I got points for that because I said it correctly. How are you gentlemen tonight?
Good, very good.
Good, and I'll let everybody know who, like I said, we talked a little bit. Y'all are well known in the square dance calling world, but I will let everybody know Don is in the green and Doug is in the red. And we're going to talk about their square dancing stuff tonight. We'll start off with both of you. Gentlemen, how are y'all? How you doing?
Good. Having a good day because we're both retired from our day jobs now. So
very nice.
Life is good. I just retired May 31st. So I'm
outstanding.
2 weeks into retirement. So
that's got to be nice.
I'm a full-time square dance caller now. Well,
awesome.
And I retired actually last year in May of 2023.
Okay.
So I beat him by a whole year. So I've been a full-time caller for a year longer than.
I love the competition is outstanding. I love that. What part of Iowa are y'all in right now?
Well, we are in the Quad Cities, which is right on the Iowa-Illinois border. It's Davenport and Bettendorf, Iowa. And then on the Illinois side, it's Rock Island, Illinois, and Moline, Illinois. Okay. Moline is where the John Deere World headquarters are.
Wow.
So that gives people maybe some perspective of where we're at. We're right on the Mississippi River. I live in Bettendorf with my wife and Natalie, and Doug lives in Davenport. But the spot we're in it's the only place where the Mississippi River runs east to west rather than north to south. There's a little bend in Iowa, and so it's the place where the Mississippi doesn't go north and south. It goes east and west. So that's kind of our claim to fame, our geographic claim to fame. Right.
Oh, that's outstanding. Now, are y'all from Iowa?
Yes, we were obviously we were born in Davenport, 1959. So we've lived here our whole lives.
Nice. Never had any plans of trying to venture out, go somewhere else?
Well, this seems to be a really good spot for us to do our traveling. We're close to all of the places we travel to and call, and it's just been a great spot. We're about 3 hours from Chicago, Illinois. We're not that far from St. Louis area. 3 hours from the central part of Iowa and Des Moines, and Wisconsin too. We call a lot in Wisconsin, so we're
outstanding. Okay,
it's handy.
So, and I usually wait to the very end, but I'm assuming y'all are going to be at the Nationals in about a week.
Oh yes,
we're I look forward to actually meeting you this time.
Yeah, we're actually involved on the committees for the Nationals. So
nice. Okay, very good.
Don's wife Natalie and I are actually because I'm also a round dance cuer.
Okay.
So as well as a caller, I cue rounds, phase 2 through 4. Natalie and I teach round dancing. We are actually the round dance chairman for the National Convention in Milwaukee.
And now, Don, you don't cue?
I do not. Well, I can cue one round dance.
Okay.
So that's his claim to fame.
That's my claim to fame.
There's one I can do.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start like we do with everybody. When did you two start dancing?
Well, we were born into a square dance family.
Okay.
Our parents actually took modern square dance lessons in 1958, which was the year before we were born. They had danced previously, kind of the old time dancing when they had lived in Wisconsin. But then they moved to Iowa in 1953. We were born in 1959. So, and they had, they were dancing when we were born. And when we were little, we used to go to the dances with them and, run around the floor during the breaks and all of that. So we were always around it. Our dad actually did a little amateur calling. He and another guy in their group of friends would take turns, and they would do some calling so that people could practice dancing.
They'd get together and practice in each other's basements and our dad and this other guy would do a little calling so they could kind of hone their skills a little bit.
And then when our mom was pregnant with us, and she couldn't dance, then they made her do some calling too. So.
Wow. Okay. So I've run into a few callers that, born into it just like yourself. And so you're around it your whole lives. At what point, and if you want to say with the competition, which one of you decided you wanted to be a caller first, or was that at the same time?
Well, okay. So we actually took square dance lessons in 1971. We started in the fall of 71. We were 12 years old. And graduated from lessons then in January of 72. And we started calling in June of 1972.
Okay.
We were at a camp out dance weekend, and we were dancing, and there was a lady in the square that was kind of an amateur caller, and we were dancing. We were both in the same square with her, and we're promenading along in the singing call, and she's like, "Man, you guys are singing all the words. Why don't you come over to my trailer tomorrow, and I'll get out my equipment, and we'll just play some music and kind of mess around a little bit." And well, that's how it happened, because then we each got a record. So 2 weeks after that, because that was on like Memorial Day weekend, and so the second week of June, the square dance club that our parents belonged to was having another graduation, because at that time they had two classes a year. They had the one that graduated in January, and then another one that graduated in June. And so the club caller, who actually worked with our dad at Oscar Mayer at the factory, and they were good friends. He said that he would let us call at the class graduation. Okay. So man, we worked on it for 2 weeks. We each had our song, and I'm not sure who was going to do what song, but the two songs were "Every Street's a Boulevard," which was on Blue Star, and then the other one was "Help Me Make It Through the Night," nice. Which at that time it had come out on a label called Square Tunes. But we each learned our song, and it was all good. And we get there that night, and it's time, and the caller's name was Marlon Spees. Okay. And so Marlon, he said, that he was going to have a couple of guys, do their first calling the next tip. And so we're each ready to do our singing call. And oh my God, it was horrible.
We're both so nervous. We couldn't even talk.
Yeah. Couldn't talk. Couldn't even see. It was like the whole room seemed black, and we're like nervous as can be. And we're like, well, I said to Doug, I said, well, I've been listening to you practice your song. You've been listening to me practice my song. We both know both songs. Why don't we call them together? Okay. So we get up.
That was not the original intent.
Yeah, that was not the original plan at all. And so we get up and we're standing there. And of course, at that point, our parents had only sprung for one microphone. So we have one microphone. And so we do these first two singing calls that we ever called, standing like this, nose to nose with one microphone. And it must have gone well enough, because a couple of weeks later, our mom and dad sprung for a second microphone, and
wow, okay,
we started calling, and from then on, we've called together all along. Yeah, we never take any dance bookings separately. Very rarely would we call a dance alone, only if one of us was sick or something like that. We do teach lessons separately sometimes, because it's when you're teaching, it's you don't need two of us to do that. But every dance we book and call, we call together, and that's just our thing.
That's great.
And as far as we know, we are the only twins that call together regularly in the United States, and maybe even beyond. I don't know, but we've never run into anybody else that are twins that call together. So that's our thing.
And at a normal dance, the patter half of the tip, I do more of the patter calling. That's kind of my thing. I kind of concentrate on that. When we get to the singing calls, Don does all of the calling part of the singing calls, and then I come in on the singing, and we sing together, we harmonize, and that sort of thing. So that's kind of great.
Even with your booking the dances together and doing it, do y'all ever just do your own tip?
Nope, never.
No, outstanding. Okay, that's outstanding.
Well, we are a package deal.
Hey, you can't beat that. There's nothing wrong. You know, some people don't want. Now it's different when you're family and as close as you are, obviously. But some people don't want to do a duet for whatever reason. You know, I love doing it. You know, but just like you said, especially in the early when y'all were first starting out, it's a lot more comforting if I've got somebody else that can do patter, and I know that I've got about a 45-second to a minute break to figure out what I'm going to do next while he does patter or she does patter. And same with the singing call. You know, I don't have to carry it the whole time. So, no, I love doing it. If I got a second person up there, you know, it's just better because I can kick back and go, okay, this is what I'll do next. And I can watch and find the corner when the other person's doing it. So, man, that's a built-in partner. There's nothing wrong with what y'all got going right there. That's awesome. Now, so you specialize, Doug, more in the choreography part of it, and Don's doing the singing. And now, is that something that y'all just decided to do that way? Or?
You know, I'm not really sure how that evolved. It just kind of evolved.
But you know, I call the square dance moves and the singing call. That's my part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's got all the singing call figures, you know, memorized and all that stuff. So I don't have to worry about that. I can just get up and call patter and I do mostly sight calling. I'm mostly you know, a little bit of memory, but most of it's sight calling. Yeah, so that's just kind of my thing.
Now, with of course your mom and your dad both did some calling early on, like you were saying. Any other people that kind of helped you along mentors wise as y'all were growing up?
Well, the lady that, you know, first had us come over to her trailer her name was Jean Aronson, and she really, I don't know that she ever even really had any bookings. She was more of a, you know, she would just do a guest tip here and there at a dance. But then the gentleman that was our club caller, Marlon Spees, he was our mentor, and he would well, he had a new club that started up shortly after we started, you know, calling. And so he would let us, and it was about 50 miles from home. So he would take us with him on Monday nights, and we would go to the lessons. And so we kind of had an idea of how, you know, the teaching process went. And so he taught us a lot of that. And so that got us a good start there. And then, of course, my square dance idol has always been Ken Bauer. Because Ken was originally from Iowa. In fact, when we first started, he was still living in Iowa. And then just shortly after that, he started to go to California for the winter and eventually, you know, moved to California. But he was always my idol. So
I did not know he was from Iowa.
Yeah, he still is my idol. So
I've had a couple opportunities to talk to Ken, great guy. And just a huge talent in the square dance world. Now, as long as y'all been calling your whole lives for the most part, do you have any main takeaways from some of the people that were mentors, just some kind of advice that you carry all the time?
Well, Marlon Spees was a great teacher. And so the takeaway there is I love to teach. In fact, both of us graduated with accounting degrees, so we're both accountants. But for a time in my life, I was actually a teacher. I taught accounting at a business college, so I love to teach square dancing, and so that, you know, we learned a lot from Marlon about all of that. And then there was another gentleman who was a very famous caller in the state of Wisconsin by the name of Gene Knutson. And the thing that I always loved about him was he always had a great rapport over the microphone with the dancers, and he would kind of talk to the dancers while he was calling.
His banter back and forth,
and not anything to you know, it wasn't like, hey, you in the blue shirt, you got to go over there or something like that. No, it wasn't that. He would just, you know, talk to the people and had a great you know, rapport with them as he was calling. And I kind of like to think that I maybe have the same thing. So that was a big takeaway. So
very nice. And Doug, what about you, buddy? Anything?
Kind of along that same line. I just relating to the dancers kind of on a one-to-one over the microphone. I've always felt square dancing it's a team effort. The caller might be the captain of the team, but it's a team effort. Everybody's got to work together. It's not caller versus dancers versus callers. It's a team effort. Everybody's in it together. If the caller has a good time, the dancers are going to have a good time. If the dancers have a good time, the caller's going to have a good time. So it's a team effort, everybody together.
That's awesome. You know, that's one thing I really try and work on a lot too. I mean, of course, my calling, I'm always trying to get better at it. But there's a few guys down here, callers, that just on the microphone, they're talking in between tips on the microphone to the dancers or whatever, or during the tip. You know, I'm just like, I don't have that. I go up and I'm like, everybody squared up, let's go. And I just hit the music, you know. But when I step off of it, I can carry on conversation. I mean, in the real world, I'm a police officer, so I know how to interact with people that I don't necessarily know, you know, long-term relationships. But yeah, that is a gift to have when you can, that personality talking up a song, you know. I've done that. It's tough. So that's great. That's something great to carry.
That's another one of Don's things. He and the dancers, you know, people will comment on this. They love to hear a little bit of history of what the song is, okay, or where it came from, why we do it, or things like that. We do it. We have a club that dances every Thursday night. We call for them every Thursday year round. Because we call for them year round every week, you can't do the same thing all the time. So right. They are huge on having different kinds of themes. They'll have a theme, not necessarily maybe just based on a holiday, but maybe on some kind of an activity, or maybe even some kind of a food theme or something. But usually we've got 2 or 3 themes every month. Okay. And so Don is fantastic about putting together music for that particular night that fits that theme. And
like last Thursday night, we had our Father's Day dance. Okay. And so, of course, we did all songs. Every singing call either had the word dad, daddy, grandpa, papa, you know. Some of them only had it in there once. Yep. But it still qualified. And then a couple of weeks ago, it was gospel night. So we did all gospel songs. So it's, you know, and I like to talk about the songs, and I probably talk too much.
Yeah, sometimes he does, but
I do.
But it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
And my famous saying, and you know, everybody, you know, gets on me about this because I always say, "Man, I love this next song," and I say it about everything. But you know, if you're going to call them, why would you call something you don't like?
Absolutely. And there's no reason you can't really like the next song. I mean, I'm sure y'all have a huge library of songs that you can't just pick one out that you love the most. I was going to ask you that because whenever I'm talking to other callers in these podcasts and what have you, I always ask them, what's your process for putting together a dance? Now, the theme, yeah, you want to try and stay on the theme, and I get that. But with y'all calling every Thursday to the same dancers for the most part, my club dances on Thursdays, but I do first and third. So I've got a gap where I can figure out, hey, here's some new songs. Whether I go pick some new ones up or whatever, I've got a big library right now. And the choreography too, and that's for you, Doug. I mean, you can't do the same thing over and over. So, what is your process? I know if you got a theme, but let's say you don't have a theme. How do y'all pick your music? Do y'all go in together on that, or what?
Really, I'm in charge of picking the songs.
Yeah, Don picks all the music.
Right. He does have the right of first refusal, though. If it's something he just, I don't want to do that tonight.
Okay.
Right.
But we call every Thursday, and then we usually call 1, 2, maybe 3 days during the weekend as well. Mm-hmm. So some weeks we've got, you know, we've always usually got 2 dances a week, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. On Wednesday, well, we used to do this Wednesday night. Now we can do it Wednesday during the day because we're both retired. But we get together and we rehearse every week.
Wow.
On Wednesday for what's coming up that weekend.
Yeah, because some of those songs we do for the themes, we only do them once a year.
Right.
And I've got all my spreadsheets and stuff, and I know what songs we call on Thursday night every week, so I'm not repeating them. And there's most of the songs on Thursday night, we only do them once a year.
Okay, outstanding.
And some of the songs, that's the only time we do them all year too, because they're not exactly my favorites.
I understand, and some of them you have to put in there just for the theme.
yeah, they're not exactly road material.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of the road, have y'all done a lot of traveling in your years?
Well, yes.
Okay.
You know, we were very fortunate because our mom was a school teacher.
Okay.
And our dad worked at, well, actually, they had been farmers in the state of Wisconsin, dairy farmers, actually. And they were both born in Wisconsin. They actually lived on farms that were back to back with each other. But then our dad had a farming accident because he farmed with horses, because our dad was born in 1919. So you know, he was farming with horses, and he had an accident where the horses stepped on him and hurt his back, and so he had to quit farming, and they moved into town, and he went to work for Oscar Mayer in Wisconsin at a factory, and then they closed that factory, and he could either take another job transfer to Madison, Wisconsin, or to Iowa, and there were openings immediately in Iowa, not at the plant in Madison. So they decided to go to Iowa, came to Iowa, and
that was how they took up square dancing, because they moved quite a ways from home. They didn't know anybody, and saw square dance lessons advertised at one of the local community centers, and that's how they got into square dancing, because they wanted to meet people.
And because mom was a school teacher and dad had worked a long time at Oscar Mayer, he would always take all of his vacation in the summer when mom was off school. And so we traveled either like 4 or 5 or 6 weeks every summer.
Wow.
And after we got into square dancing, we would always start our summer travels at the national convention. So that just became a yearly tradition. Our first national we went to was 1972. It was in Des Moines, Iowa, so it was close by. We kind of got bit by the bug, and we haven't missed one since. We've been to every national convention since 1972.
Yeah, so the only one we missed was 2020 when it was canceled because of COVID.
So
other than that, we've been to every national since 1972.
and, but because of that, that was how our summer travels, you know, would start at the national, and whatever part of the country it was in, we would travel. We were very fortunate. By the time we got out of college, we had been in 49 states.
Okay.
And a lot of times as we were on those trips, we'd find dances to go to. And, you know, the callers would, you know, they'd find out we were callers, and they'd have us call the guest tip. And so we got around, and then we started, because mom and dad had originally been from Wisconsin, we started going to the Wisconsin State Square Dance Convention, which is always like in August. And from going there, we went there the first time in 1976. And from there, then we started getting bookings in Wisconsin. We got to know people from Chicago. We started calling in Illinois. And of course, we were in Iowa, and we go to the Iowa convention, and we started calling in Iowa. So Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois are our main states. But I mean, we do everything surrounding.
Minnesota, Missouri.
Yeah. In fact, last fall, we had a weekend where we were in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So we do a lot of traveling.
And it probably will get to be more now that we're both retired.
Sure, absolutely.
At least that's the hope, anyway.
Yeah.
So
We won't have to get home and get to work on Monday morning.
Right.
So.
So between our square dance calling, and then we have another hobby, which has also kind of turned into a side gig too. We've got time to do all of that now. So
Okay. Well, man, I didn't realize that y'all had been to so many nationals, and with the nationals coming up, tell me some stories. Something memorable about one in particular, any of them?
Well, one thing is that my children are involved in dancing.
Okay.
So Natalie and I actually got married in 2001. We adopted our 2 sons in 2006 from Siberia.
Okay.
So Roman and Andre, and Roman is now 21. He lives in LA. Andre is 20. He lives at home, but he's going to college in Colorado. He goes to college in Grand Junction, Colorado. He's in nursing. He's going to be a nurse. He wants to be a pediatric nurse.
Okay.
So, you know, we started out in a square dance family. And now, you know, it's just really gratifying because now my kids are dancing. They learned how to dance in 2012.
Okay.
But their first dancing that they went to was, we adopted them. We brought them home from Siberia on Memorial Day weekend in 2006. So end of May. At the end of June, we packed up and we all went to San Antonio to the National.
Wow.
So these little guys, they're 2 and 3. They're from Siberia. They didn't speak any English, and so we go to the National in San Antonio. It was so hot. They were just sweating like crazy because they just weren't used to that. But so they've actually gone to most every national since 2006. And actually, this year in Milwaukee, Roman, my California guy, he is actually the chairperson for the youth hall.
Oh, no kid. Outstanding.
It's going to be the 3rd time that he's actually been the youth hall chair at a national, because our whole family did it in 2016 when the national was in Iowa, when it was in Des Moines in 2016. But then he was actually the youth hall chair in Jackson, Mississippi in 2021.
Okay.
And then he's the youth chair this year in Milwaukee. And then his brother, Andre's his assistant chair. So they've got all kinds of things planned for the kids. And
That's great.
he's really good at this because he is this very talented, very creative, and he makes it fun for the kids. They do a lot of non-dancing activities, not just dancing in the youth hall. And it's just fun. And it's just, like I said, it's gratifying to know that my kids are into it too,
Absolutely. That's great. Gosh.
So nationals have always been, that
Okay.
important family thing for us.
Yeah.
And it's always kind of like been the kind of, I don't want to say the end, but kind of the culmination of our quote unquote square dance year. Because then we would go to the national and then we'd take a little time off in the summer to do some other activities. And especially after they got the kids, to do some summer activities with the kids. Then it kind of gives you time to get rejuvenated and then start up again in the fall when lessons start and everything. So this summer, we're not really taking much of a break because we're actually going to go to the Canadian National Convention in Calgary, which is the 3rd weekend of July. So we're heading up there.
Now, have you all ever been to that one before?
We have been to
This will be our 3rd one.
Yeah, this will be our 3rd Canadian National.
But we haven't been to one since like in the 90s.
Okay. Well, now
Haven't gotten away,
being twins, this is an interest right outside of square dancing and all that. Do you have any favorite foods or drinks or anything?
Well, my problem is I don't think I've ever met a food I didn't like, or at least I wouldn't eat. But yesterday we went out for Father's Day, so we went to a Vietnamese restaurant. So I like to have the soup. They have the pho.
Okay.
The PHO pho. So that was my choice for Father's Day. Of course, we took Uncle Doug along too.
Right,
so.
right. Because I am the favorite uncle. So.
Okay. Well, it should be as well. Yep.
And so Andre is home from college. So actually, Roman is in LA. He's flying to Milwaukee on Tuesday.
Oh wow.
So we won't see him up there till Tuesday.
You said something about favorite drink. Good or for bad, one of our signatures is we've always got a fountain drink, a diet soda on the table when we're calling.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, no, you got to have something, especially when you're doing a whole dance and all that, and you're together. You got to have something. That's for sure.
and it's kind of funny because now there's a dancer in the Chicago area. She knows that I'm a Diet Coke person. Don's a Diet Pepsi person. When she comes to the dance, she brings us each a 20-ounce bottle for the ride home. I get a Diet Coke. Don gets a Diet Pepsi.
Wow.
She knows which one to give to who.
Yeah.
So she's been paying attention.
Now, that's something that really interests me and something like that, because being from Georgia, from the South, it's Coca-Cola, 100%. And it's almost a fight if somebody wants to talk about Diet Pepsi or regular Pepsi, or whatever. And y'all both Iowa twins, and one's Coke, one Pepsi. That's amazing.
And I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, I really don't know.
I understand. Nothing wrong
We
with
have
that.
we have to have some individuality.
Oh,
Right.
sure, absolutely.
I think it's because when we go to the convenience store and you go up to the fountain, because I got to have fountain pop because I got to have the fizz. I can fill my Diet Coke while he's filling his Diet Pepsi at the same time. Hey, it's faster that way. We're in and out. So
Efficient. I like that. Now, and this is something else with being twins. Music genre, not square dance. What do you like?
Well, that's interesting. And of course, it carries over into the square dancing. But we do a lot of in a lot of the music that we've done over the last few years calling has been based on some of the music that my kids like.
Okay.
But we do a lot of bluegrass.
Okay.
Just because it lends itself well to harmony.
Sure.
Yeah. So I love bluegrass. I mean, we grew up. We were at a dance last fall, and Tony Oxendine was the caller, and he had made a comment over the microphone that he said that he had seen a study that as a caller, you end up calling the kind of music that you grew up listening to in high school.
Sure.
And I thought about that, and I was like, wow, that's probably true, because when we were kids, it was always country music playing in the house, or polka.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
our dad is Czech, and so we had, there was a station on Sunday that always played polka music. So that was always on the radio at home on Sundays during the day, and so we do a lot of polka stuff. In fact, we do a number of Oktoberfest dances in the fall where we do all polka music all night long.
Okay.
And it's so I guess I'd say bluegrass, country, that would be my favorite. But I love pop music, and to me it's the song.
Sure.
I don't know that I have a favorite absolute genre.
The two new ones.
And then right now we're doing a couple of new songs that are kind of, they're not brand new singing calls, but we've just gotten them recently. And one's a Rod Stewart song, and the other one's a U2 song.
Okay.
So we're kind of all over the place.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with it. And a lot are, especially when your whole lives have been some type of music with square dancing for y'all. And now, in school, did y'all do any other instruments or anything like that, or any kind of singing stuff?
We both played the electric guitar for about a month.
Okay.
And then we started to call, and then never picked up the guitars again.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense. Okay.
We use them every now and then for a skit.
Right, we use them for a prop once in a while.
Yeah.
Still have them. That's about it.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
But I mean, we were in 7th grade, so we learned to dance and started calling when we were in 7th grade. So I mean, we've been doing this pretty much forever.
We don't know anything else.
Yeah, we don't know anything else. We didn't really have time to get involved in other stuff.
No, nothing wrong. That's great.
When we were seniors in high school, we didn't go to senior prom because we had a booking that night.
Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh.
Senior prom,
So the club decided that night that they would, to help us out and make us not feel so bad, they called it the Springtime Promenade. So spring prom.
Gotcha. Very nice. I always wonder about that, how different I would have been if I would have picked this up in high school. I have no idea. Because it was way later in life for me. So, man, more power to you. That's awesome that you missed your prom and book a dance. Wow.
We didn't know anything else.
Well, and of course, since we started at that age, we couldn't drive ourselves to dances.
Right.
So when we first started calling, our mom and dad took us to every dance. And then even as we were older, they would go with us because though the square dancers were their friends. That was their social circle.
That was their life as well.
Yeah. So our mom and dad were very involved with it for,
Oh, that's great.
all their lives, really.
Yeah.
With all that, with all the music that y'all have to go through calling every week like you do, and it's calling for as long as you have, do you have any favorite singing calls that stand out to you?
Well, that's an interesting question because there is one singing call that we recorded because we record on Solid Gold Records.
Okay.
And one of the songs that we recorded, and actually came out in 2019, but it's a Billy Joel song.
Mm-hmm.
It's called "You're My Home."
You're my home.
And it's a wonderful love song, beautiful love song. And it happens to be my wife's favorite song.
Okay.
And so
That could be why we recorded that song.
that could be why. Yeah, well, she actually found it.
Okay.
I have to say, I never knew when we first started recording, and we've been recording since probably the early 2000s, probably 2000, I think, was when we first recorded our first singing call. I always thought we've been calling a long time, and we always wanted to record a song, but the opportunity just didn't happen. And then another caller from Iowa, Tom Manning, he owns Solid Gold Records, and we've been good friends with Tom ever since we were all teenagers. But eventually, at that point, he asked us if we would like to record with Solid Gold, and so we did. But I always thought that finding music for singing calls, I thought it was going to be a breeze. I thought this was going to. It's not easy. At least I don't find it easy. So I have to say, over the years, Natalie has found us some good songs. One of the other ones that she found that I really love to call is a Gordon Lightfoot song. I love Gordon Lightfoot, love all his stuff. But it's called "Did She Mention My Name?"
Okay.
And that's been a really good song for us too. I mean, I don't have any idea how they sell, because Tom doesn't tell me if any of them are bestsellers, and I don't want to know.
Right.
But yeah, the "You're My Home" song, love to call it, just called it Saturday night. Natalie was there, so I got to say, "Oh, this one's from my wife," So.
That's great. Yeah, I like Gordon Lightfoot. I wasn't aware of that song. I'll have to look that up when we get done. That's awesome.
Yeah, just lately though, a couple of the newer songs that we've learned and are doing, they're just so not us.
Yeah, not the same stuff we always used to do.
Not normal for us. I mean, we're doing "Forever Young" on Blue Star, and that's turned into that's turned into a pretty good song for us.
Yeah, and Rod Stewart's definitely not country. So.
Yeah, and then also
the U2 song is "I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For" on Blue Star.
What is it on Blue Star? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's got in the middle break, there's an interlude, and it's actually
it's like a mashup. So everything except the middle break is U2's "I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For," but the middle break is a Queen song.
Okay.
Called "I Want to Be Free."
Okay, I know the song. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a cool song. We're getting a lot of mileage out of that one right now.
Wow, that's awesome.
But our last two that we've done, were both country. I mean, one's bluegrass. We just did and it's Don found the song. It's from some obscure little bluegrass group from up in like the Northwest.
Well, they're actually from Northern California. It's a bunch of younger people. It's not like an old time bluegrass band, but they do bluegrass, and the name of the group is Blue Summit. But the song is called "Not Gonna Cry Over You," and I'm sure it's not a song that ever was on any radio or anything like that, but it just made a great singing call.
Turned into a real rockin' singing call.
And then we did a remake of "Before the Next Teardrop Falls," the old Freddie Fender song.
Freddie Fender, absolutely, that's good stuff. What label was that on?
It's Solid Gold.
Solid Gold.
Those are the ones that we recorded. Yeah, those.
Okay, I got you. Awesome. That's great. Well, now, with as much traveling as you've done, you've probably already answered this question, but if you could call anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Well, probably Hawaii would be a good thing.
Okay.
Because that's the only state we haven't been to. Because when we traveled as kids, and we traveled in the RV, we had a travel trailer, and our dad always said that as soon as they built a bridge to Hawaii, that we'd go to Hawaii. Because our parents never flew.
Yeah, Dad was not going to fly. So if he could have driven to Hawaii, we would have got there. But
wow. Okay.
So if we could go call it Hawaii, that would check that one off.
Yeah, we could get that checked off our box.
And
Okay.
strangely enough, my wife Natalie got 49 states, and her 50th one that she needs is also Hawaii.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because she had done 48, and then last year we were the featured callers at the North Dakota State Square Dance Convention in April of 2023, and so of course, and she was the featured cuer. So we got her North Dakota checked off that time.
Gotcha.
So now we're all in the same boat with just needing to go to Hawaii.
Gotcha. That's one of my little goals I picked up on a couple of years ago. Is I wanted to try and call in all 50 states. I think I'm at 9, so I'm a couple behind y'all.
Well, we haven't called in every state. We've been to all those states.
Okay.
We've called in a lot.
And that too, I would love to. I would love to say that I've gone through all of them, and at some point I'll be able to retire, not long from now. And my wife and I are planning on quite a bit of traveling, but so I'd like to see them all. And just as far as visiting, I've probably been to 20 states, maybe. I've been to Hawaii. Amazing. You know, as much as my wife and I have traveled, the joke that I tell is I've been to 2 places with her that I told her we don't have to get back on the boat because we were on cruises. We don't have to get back on the boat. We'll sell everything and just live here. And that was Key West and Hawaii. Just the most amazing places. Hawaii, that's another world. I don't know what that is out there. Didn't know how far it was either. When I realized that the flight from Georgia to California was an hour shorter than California to Hawaii, I thought, where are we going? I had no idea. It's way out there, but just beautiful. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. And Key West.
My son is in LA. He says we should drive to LA, and then we'll fly obviously from there. And he said he could go with us then. So
Absolutely. You'll have to go at some point, whether it be square dance or not. You've got to go to Hawaii. It's something to see.
Oh yeah, there's no way we're not going to get to 50 states. That's a given. We got to do it because my wife is actually retiring in like the end of July or August this year.
Okay.
So she'll be retired, and then the 3 of us can be like
nomads,
right? Exactly.
Very nice, outstanding.
The only problem is every time Ramon and Andre find out we're going someplace, then they're like, "Oh, can we go too?" Because they're going to Calgary with us to the convention.
Okay.
Andre's going to go with us to Calgary to the Canadian National. Ramon's going to fly from LA up to Calgary also.
Gotcha.
But we're just not going there to the Canadian National. We're actually going a few days ahead. We're going to go to Lake Louise and to Banff.
Yeah, best way to do it. Best way. Typically, now I'm going to GSI for this national, so I'm going up. I'm leaving Saturday morning, driving to Indiana, then driving in Sunday for GSI school. But my wife and I will do that a lot. A lot of these conventions will take the 4 days in front or 4 days behind to go. And we went to the Grand Canyon when we were down there toward Arizona, New Mexico for a CALLERLAB. And that's the best way to do it. Y'all got something good going right there. A little bit more about y'all. And I wanted, before I forget, because I was asked by somebody why I didn't ask it every time. Do you have a favorite get out? And Doug, we'll start with you since that's kind of your specialty.
That's his thing, yeah.
That is
Okay.
kind of
And we both do really, like Doug had said, primarily sight calling. So I have my little things, but mine are not anywhere near as spectacular as his.
Well, okay, but also whenever we do a patter tip, okay, at the beginning, Don will start out and he'll do a little sequence, kind of. I always refer to it as the opener. He'll do something, just kind of, and usually it might involve, like something with a circle or a bar or a star or something. Maybe he'll do something like that just to kind of get him started. Then I'll go into the the real
to the meat of the tip.
Meat, okay.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I've got a lot of get outs that I've done them so long that they're memorized.
But he does a lot of stuff.
I do a lot of the stuff now of the where they're back home.
Okay.
Without the right and left gram.
And even without the Alaman left, a lot
Right.
of times.
Yeah. And I like to think that sometimes I surprise the dancers.
Sure.
They don't realize that all of a sudden they're home. They don't realize that that's where I was really heading.
But the thing is, Doug is single. He lives alone. If he can't sleep at night, he's creating choreography.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't count sheep. I write choreography.
Okay.
When I
Okay.
And sometimes I got to get up and write a few things down because if I don't do that, I'm not going to remember it in the morning. So
I understand.
So yeah, I got to keep a pad and a pen on the nightstand.
As far as choreography goes, and with choreography, how often do you just actually write or work it? Every day?
You know, I think I do think about it every day.
Okay.
I really do. I really do.
And probably part of that is because we've done it so long.
Mhm.
It's just ingrained in your
And,
daily thought process.
and I mean, we call up through and including A2, and we don't call as many advanced level dances as we do other levels.
Mhm.
So sometimes that's a lot of what I'm because I'll know that we've got a dance coming up where we're going to do some advanced. So I'm kind of thinking about that a few weeks ahead of time. So that's when I'm thinking about when I go to bed at night. It's like, oh, I need to get my mind refreshed in this a little bit. And so yeah, a lot of it is that. And so yeah, I'll fall asleep at night, you know, kind of like calling a sequence in my head. And,
Doug, I'm not making this up at all. You saying it's counting the sheep. First of all, I've never had issue with going to sleep. I'm lucky in that regard. I have a brother that's a year and a half younger than me, and he would tell me as a kid he'd lay and look at the ceiling for 5 hours. You know, because he got so much going on. I like to think I don't have much going on up top, so I go to sleep pretty easy. But on those nights that I'm thinking about other things, I will sit there and I'll start off and I'll say side square through 4, right and left through rear left. I don't ever get to the corner. It'll put me to sleep just like that. It relaxes me that much. So yeah, I do. I don't count sheep. I will sit there and start calling in my head.
Yep.
And, dude, that's awesome. I got you. And of course, Don, with you being responsible for the singing stuff, that's just as much because, you know, your variety is even more because you can't use the same singing calls over and over.
Right.
Doug can slip in. Doug can slip in a sequence that's the same that the dancers may not even realize if he does it. So.
And I have to get this better organized, and I should in my retirement now. But I have a stack of, you know, papers that I've got all my little singing call figures written down on it. I try hard not to use a lot of the figures that are, you know, the standard always, you know, the promenade half, square through 4, right and left through veer left, Ferris wheel, square through 3. I try not to call that. I try not to call the spin the top, right and left through square through 3. I try not to call that. I just try to do different stuff. And sometimes I might miss a line when I'm looking down at my notes and get myself in trouble.
not very often.
But not very often.
Not very.
Yep.
But a lot of times he'll kind of be thinking ahead a tip or two, and he'll know what singing call figure he's going to use, and so before the tip starts, he'll nudge me and he'll say, "You're sure to call such and such."
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So that
they're not so surprised when it's in the singing call.
right. So
Yeah, yeah. I learned that early on, and I learned it from the square dance, the teachers, the caller coaches, Tony Oxendine, and them. He was like, "Man, put it in your patter, so that you just like you said, you can't surprise the dancers. If you surprise them in the singing call, you're cooked in the singing call. You can fix it in the patter."
It ruins the whole flow of the singing call.
Yeah.
You want them, you know, the goal is they start out together. You want them back together. You don't want them to screw up the singing
Right.
call.
The singing call is the reward.
Yeah. Do a whole patter without doing relay the deucey, and then jump into a singing call and drop relay the deucey, and you're going to have half your square staring at you most of the time. So that's great advice. I asked that too, and let me get it from both of y'all. Do you have any advice for square dance callers of any level?
Well, one thing, and a new caller asked me this recently, and I told him, I said, you know, you've probably heard the phrase, "To thine own self be true." And I said, as far as music, you need to follow that mantra, because don't necessarily call the same songs that everybody's using. Call what really speaks to you, because if you're doing something that you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to sell it to the dancers. So do stuff that you like, and if you're doing it good and you're having a good time, the dancers are going to enjoy it. And I know there's, you know, the whole thought process these days of, oh, we can't use country music in square dancing, and, you know, we have to use, you know, modern music, which is kind of a real misnomer, because some of the modern music that people talk about is still, you know, it might be rock music that's
Sure.
20, 30 years old anyway. So it's not exactly modern music.
Yeah.
But right. So, but do what speaks to you so that you can sell it. And if you're going to sell it, they'll buy it. You got to be able to be enthusiastic.
Absolutely.
Well, believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, believe in what you're doing.
Believe in what you're doing.
And love what you're doing, because we love what we do. It's just, and I hope that shows over the microphone. And a lot of people will tell you that it does. So.
Well, as much as y'all do now with it, it absolutely, I'm sure it does. And confidence is a big part of it. You can see that if you sit there and go record and copy down what some other big time caller's doing, and I walk in there and try and read it off a piece of paper, never going to work. Because first of all, they're not buying it, because that's not mine. I didn't come up with it, or I didn't work it up my own. So the confidence, and I was told early on, no matter where you are, Charlie, if you walk into a national convention and you step up on the stage and it's your turn, you are the best caller in that room. You're really not, but you, in your mind, you're the best one standing up there. And that's the way you got to approach it. And, so confidence is huge, and dancers feel it, because I was a dancer for 20 years longer than I was a caller. And I knew stepping up there, I was like, oh, I can't wait to listen to this guy. You can just see it. The conversation in between tips, that confidence of talking to them, you can sell it. That's awesome.
So earlier you had said the word CALLERLAB.
Yep.
And so I did want to say we've been CALLERLAB members since 1981.
Okay.
But in that whole time, we've only been to like 2 CALLERLAB conventions. Well, maybe three. But now I am excited, because now that we're retired, we're going to go to CALLERLAB in it's in Greenville next spring. Strangely enough, because we're both accountants, right? And for almost 25 years, Doug's accounting job was, he was the bookkeeper at the church that we grew up in. And for like the last dozen years of my work life, I was a bookkeeper at a different church. And CALLERLAB always being the week of Easter, the week of Easter is not a great time for the bookkeeper to be gone. So we haven't been to CALLERLAB in forever. So this is going to be cool. Yeah.
Well, you picked a good one. This is the 50th coming up in South Carolina. The downside for y'all, it's a good travel, but you get out, hit the road.
I looked at it. It's not that bad. It's like
nothing wrong with that.
That's why I like where we are. We're kind of in the middle of everything.
Sure. Yeah.
Right in the middle of everything. So.
Yeah. It's 3 hours for me drive, straight shot out I-20. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's a great for y'all to come to. And I tell everybody, whether it's on this podcast or in person, CALLERLAB is probably the reason I'm still calling. Because I was calling in Georgia for about, 5-6 years. I joined CALLERLAB, but I hadn't gone to any conventions or anything. And and I just got to know the same handful of square dance callers, all real good guys, all put me up there, hey, go up there and do something, Charlie, grab a record, do whatever. And but when I went to my first CALLERLAB, and I can't remember which one it was, I started seeing all these, Sprosty brothers, Tony Oxendine, all these guys, and they're talking to me, and hey man, Charlie, why don't you do this? Why don't you try that? That's what kept me in it. CALLERLAB was just tremendous for me. And then of course, going through COVID and all, like we all did, CALLERLAB was right there, putting out videos and newsletters and all. So huge CALLERLAB fan. That should come out. But that's awesome. I'm glad y'all going to get to go to that. That being said, before we get in anything else, favorite movie, Footloose or Dirty Dancing? I just have to ask that of everybody. Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
Both of you.
I'm not a big movie person.
Okay.
Oddly enough, I don't even have a TV at my house.
Wow. Okay.
He watches everything on his phone.
Yeah, I watch everything on my phone. That's. But there's a lot of movies that I'm sure I've seen the whole movie, but
but I haven't watched it all from start to finish at any one time. I've seen like maybe the beginning, and then I had to go do something, or I turned it on and saw the end or something.
You walked through
the middle, or I
walked.
walked through the room when the kids or Natalie were watching a movie. So I've seen, I think, a lot of the movies, the whole movie, but not all of it in start to finish.
Well, that being said, and of course, Doug, you without a TV in the house, but you watch it. Do you have a favorite movie or favorites? How about that?
It's been so long since I have no idea.
Yeah, you're a boring person.
I am a boring person. I really am.
We have another hobby, which I had said earlier, it's kind of turned into a little bit of a side gig also, which is good for our retirement because we're making a little money at that too.
But you want to talk about it?
Oh, absolutely. Just a little, because it would be a whole nother podcast.
Okay. All right. Have at it.
But we are both certified by the American Kennel Club as ring stewards, which means at American Kennel Club dog shows,
we help put on dog shows.
We help put on the dog shows. We assist the judges. So at a dog show, there's different judges, judging the different dogs, and each judge has an assistant in their ring that helps them get the right dogs into the ring at the right time, helps organize the prizes, helps record the judges' placements when they judge, and that's what we do.
Okay.
We've actually been going to dog shows longer than we've been going to square dances, because we went to our first dog show when we were 10 and started square dancing when we were 11. Now, we didn't show dogs all that time because our parents really weren't into it. They didn't understand the whole primping and everything, because they were farmers. They thought dogs were livestock out on the farm. But eventually we did start to show, and for a few years we showed Norwegian elk hounds. But we're not showing any longer. And we get our dog show fixed by stewarding. And so we do that a lot in Iowa. We go down to St. Louis, do it in Wisconsin, Illinois. We're doing more.
Yeah, we did some shows up in Madison, Wisconsin, the end of February. There was like 2,000 dogs a day. It was a 4-day series, 2,000 dogs a day, 16 rings going on at the same time. So you got 16 judges, 16 assistants running the thing, and you get, because it's all a big elimination contest, because you get down to the end of the day and one dog is best in show, just like on Westminster. So this dog show stewarding is kind of like square dance calling. The square dance calling is herding people.
Sure.
Dog show stewarding is herding people with their dogs.
Gotcha.
And and we've been into dogs, like I said, for a long time.
So that's why I don't have a TV, because I'm on a couple of dog show apps every night before I go to bed.
Okay.
I don't need a TV. I'm busy on my dog show apps.
Sure.
Who wanted this show and who wanted that show?
Yeah.
So but a couple of years ago, it was before COVID, so it was pre-2020. There was a couple in one of our local square dance clubs, and they were involved in a group that had dogs that did search and rescue. Like if there was a building collapse or something, they had the dogs that would go in and find, the survivors and all of that. And these people took square dance lessons. And so they were involved in dancing, and we knew them through dancing. And then they found out that we were into dogs. And so at their group's annual meeting that they had one year, they asked us if we would come and teach them how to square dance with their dogs.
Okay.
And we did.
Wow.
And I had seen this many years ago in a video, and we kind of copied what they did. And what we did was we taught and there was only the two people, the one couple that knew how to square dance, So it was like any other one-nighter, you had to teach them all of the basics, But they would walk and do the square dance calls, and they would have their dog heel beside them. You know how you have your dog heel beside you on the left-hand side there. And so they would walk and the dogs would follow them. And it was the coolest thing. We did that for a couple hours, and they did a story in the newspaper about it. And it was just the coolest thing to teach people and their dogs to square dance.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
I'd love to do that again sometime.
Now that would be in the stewards. Do y'all have dogs?
Not any longer.
Okay.
No.
And
Yeah.
that's another way to get to it. I mean, you know, rather than with as much as you travel and you're planning on traveling, it's tough. If you can't take the dogs with you, you got to board them. And because we had a dog for the first, gosh, I don't know how many years of, you know, my wife and I's married life. And when we had to put our dog down, our last one about 6 years ago. And, you know, it's just like, hey, do we want to get another one? It's, no. You know, I'd love to have another. We had a lab mix. And, but do you want to get another one? Well, you know, next week we're at Nationals for the week,
Right.
you know, and then following that, I'm going to be in July. I'm in North Carolina at, Tony's college school for a week, you know, so it's tough.
Yeah, it's not really fair to the
You
dog.
know, and as much as I love dogs, I wouldn't want to try and travel with one all the time because it's just too much.
Yeah.
You know?
We have a couple of cats now, and they're a little more self-sufficient. We have a good neighbor that comes over and watches.
Okay.
We still get our dog show fixed by going to the dog show.
So we get our dog show fixed by going to the.
That's exactly it. Nothing wrong.
But then everybody else has to take their own dog home. We can go home and
Right.
it's kind of like being a grandparent. You can send the kids home at
Exactly right. When it's bedtime, you can just send them home, or you can go home to your house, and then they got to deal with the bedtimes. That's all.
So yeah, I don't know. I was talking to somebody I saw recently, and I said something about sport ants calling and also about the dog shows, and they're like, "Wow, you're involved in a couple of things that, unless you know those things exist, you don't know they exist."
Absolutely.
And I'm like, I had to stop and think about it, and then I'm like, "You're right. You're right." So anyway.
You know, I still have people, everybody at my work, and I've been there for a long time now. Somebody will come up and go, "You're a square dance caller? What, you know, where do y'all do that?" And I'm like, well, there's 5 clubs within 20 miles of where we are right now.
Yeah.
You know, they're not huge clubs anymore, but and I was like, they're all around you. You just don't see it.
Right. Right.
And I knew there were dog shows, but you know, outside of Westminster's, you don't ever hear about it for the most part, unless you're in that circle.
Exactly.
Well, gentlemen, on the national part of it, y'all are going up what day, you said?
Well, we're actually going up on Monday next week.
Okay.
Because we're actually going on one of the tours Monday night. There's a bunch of us going to a Milwaukee Brewers game.
Yeah, we're going to a baseball game.
Going to the baseball game.
Awesome. Yep.
So
I considered that one, but since that's the first night of GSI for me, I've got calling spots on Thursday and Saturday. It just, by luck of the draw, I got 0 on Friday. So I'm going to go, my wife and I, we're going to go over to the Brewers Chicago Cubs Friday night.
Oh, okay.
Watch out. So I can't pass. I'm a huge baseball guy. I can't pass up the chance to go to Brewers and see the big sliding board in left field and everything. So can't pass.
I guess on Monday night, the sport answers we're like in a skybox, you know, together. And
no kidding.
There's
I might have to slip over there for that one thing.
You know, and all that sort of stuff. So
I may have to slip over there for that too.
Anyway, yeah, that's going to be pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And then Tuesday we got a bunch of stuff we got to get ready. Natalie and Doug for the round dancing part of it, getting all the stuff set up. Then Wednesday we'll set up the youth hall because Roman flies in from California Tuesday night. So then Wednesday we'll get the youth hall all set up.
And then we're part of the opening ceremonies on Wednesday night.
Yeah, we're doing the I guess you'd call it the invocation, but it's called the Square Dancer's Prayer. It's actually a thing and so we're doing that at the opening ceremonies on Wednesday, and from then on it's just all kicking into high gear. So.
Well, that's awesome, guys. I'm going to look for, once I get the caller scheduled, look for some of y'all spots. Love to come see y'all and actually get to dance to you. Because like I said, I've seen some on YouTube and and I've seen you at a couple conventions. Just the downside to state conventions and things like that and nationals, you're constantly on the move.
Exactly.
You know, if you're not calling.
I've seen you walking past you.
You know, you're always on the move. You get to say, hey, for a minute, but you're like, hey, I got to be in the plus hall. I got to go.
That's the thing. Don, when we get ready to do a convention, and Don's like, okay, now this convention, I'm gonna listen to other callers call. I want to listen to what music they're using, what they're calling. And then we get home from the convention. I'm like, okay, did you hear anything you like? And he's like, I forgot to listen. Because I was so busy, I forgot to really listen.
Right.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, that's I try and I'll throw my phone up on the stage to try and record somebody that I don't get to hear a whole lot of, and take it home and mess with it and see what I can do with it. So, well, fellas, I'm certainly looking forward to talking to y'all in person when we get to Wisconsin. Absolutely, and I appreciate y'all doing this. And like I tell everybody, I would love to. Y'all have way more stories than I can fit into an hour.
Exactly.
And more stuff to talk about. So I'd love to do this down the road again with both of you. And,
Right.
It's been a true pleasure.
Well, thank you. We've had a great time.
Well,
Certainly glad that
I'll
you
say
contacted-
Doug and Don, because Doug you're 2 minutes older, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I was the surprise.
And he was a surprise. I was. Our parents were not expecting twins.
Are you kidding me?
I'm kidding. I mean,
Well,
look, this is 1959.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So I was born first, and of course the old joke always is, our mom would tell this story. The doctor turned to the nurse and said, "I need another name bracelet." And the nurse said, "Why? Did you drop the first one?" And he said, "No, there's another one in there."
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was a total
He was
surprise.
a total surprise.
Jeez, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, gentlemen, y'all are the best. I appreciate y'all doing this. This has been a good time. It really has. I appreciate y'all doing it. Comes out in a couple. I think it's going to be the week after Nationals, so all of our national talks are going to be behind us at that point. But I'm looking forward to seeing y'all in about a week.
Okay.
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you very much.
Don, it's my pleasure. I'll talk to y'all soon. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Good night.
Circle on a stormy sea of moving emotion, tossed about just like a ship on the ocean. Men start right and you roll it one time round. Allemande that corner and you weave the line. Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you get done. Lay your weary head to rest. Don't you cry no more. Chain the ladies